Welcome back to 3 Inquisitive Kids. In this video, we're learning all about solving inequalities. Now, if you're someone who has already mastered the concept of solving linear equations and finding x, then this shouldn't be so hard because in a lot of ways, it is the same as solving equations. The skills you need, like combining terms or removing denominators, they're sort of the same concept. It's just that there's a few more things you have to pay attention to while solving inequalities, because obviously inequalities and equations are not the same thing. But yeah, we're just going to use our knowledge of the properties of inequalities that we've learned from the previous videos to help us solve and simplify inequalities. As you can see, this is the course outline for our unit, and we have already had our introduction to inequalities, and we learned about properties and solution sets of inequalities. Now, instead of learning all about inequalities, we're going to learn how to simplify them and how to solve inequalities. So this is part 1 to our 4th lesson, one variable inequalities and linear functions. And then moving on, we'll be looking at inequalities in word problems and the different methods of solving inequalities. The learning goals of today is to understand and master the concept of linear inequalities in one variable, and to skillfully solve linear inequalities in one variable by using the properties of inequalities. And sometimes you'll see linear inequalities in one variable. Sometimes you'll see unary linear inequalities. Those all mean the same thing. So let's do some review first. What are unary linear equations? Well, here's the answer. It's an equation that contains only one variable whose index is 1, and it only includes whole expressions. And what are some properties of inequalities? Well, some properties of inequalities that we've learned is that when you add the same number to both sides of an inequality, the sign stays the same. When the positive number is multiplied to both sides of an inequality, the sign stays the same. And when a same negative number is multiplied to both sides of an inequality, the sign must change. So here, when I say add, multiply, and multiply, remember, it's the same with subtracting. So adding and subtracting are the same property. Multiplication and division are also the same properties, because you can think of multiplying a reciprocal of a number as dividing, because you can think of dividing a number as multiplying that number's reciprocal, or subtracting number as adding that number's opposite. So adding also, its reverse, subtract. Multiplication, its reverse is division. Linear inequalities in one variable. Think. Observe the following inequalities. Here we have 4 inequalities. Looking at them, what characteristics do they have in common? Take your time and pause the video to observe for a moment. Alright, after observing, you may find that each inequality only contains one variable and that their indexes are all 1. From this, we can summarize the definition of unary linear inequalities. It's an inequality that contains only one variable which is raised to the first power, and that is called a unary linear inequality. Now, based off of that summary, let's do some practice. Are the following inequalities unary linear inequalities? So looking at the first one, this is a unary linear inequality because it contains only one variable, which is x, and that variable's index is 1. So we will put a check mark next to the first one. The next one is 5x plus 3 is less than 0. This is also a unary linear inequality, for there is only one variable, x, and it is raised to the first power. The next one would not be a unary linear inequality because it does not contain whole expressions on both sides. Remember, the definition of a whole expression says that it cannot contain a variable on the denominator. And here we do see an x on the denominator of a fraction, so the third one is not a linear inequality in one variable. And for our final one, it is not a unary linear inequality either. Why? Well, let's first look at why these aren't unary linear inequalities. First, for the third one, the left side isn't a whole expression. And for the last one, is that when you simplify it down to its most simplest form, you get x squared. And x squared is not a variable raised to the first power. Solving unary linear inequalities. So here we are going to show the solution of solving an inequality and an equation. And you'll see that the same expressions are used onto both sides of the sign. It's just that for the inequality, it's less than, and for the equation, it's equal to. But seeing these steps next to each other, you'll see how similar they are and what are their differences. So, solving for this equation, our solution is to first always transpose terms, combine like terms, and then isolate the variable, which is x is equal to negative 16. Now, obviously, we won't have the same result for the inequality, but we'll have something sort of similar. So let's see how we will do this. So first, we transpose terms too, using the properties of inequalities that we reviewed at the beginning of this video. By adding 1 to both sides of the equation and subtracting 5x onto both sides of the equation, we get 4x minus 5x is less than 15 plus 1. After we combine like terms, we have negative x is less than 16. Now this is an important part. After isolating the variable, which is dividing both sides by negative 1, we have to turn the direction of the sign. Remember, multiplying or dividing the same negative number onto both sides of an inequality always changes the sign. This is something that I really need to stress because this is a very common mistake, especially when you're just getting started. Anyways, here, let's compare these two solutions. We have the same exact steps, transpose terms, combine like terms, and then isolate the variable. It's really just that extra step at the end where you have to remember to switch it from a less than sign to the greater than sign. But of course, you don't have to worry about that when dealing with equalities and equations because there is only one, equal sign. So here is our conclusion. When solving a unary linear equation, the equation should be gradually transformed into the form of x is equal to a, where x is the variable and a is its value. While solving a unary linear inequality, the inequality should be simplified into the form of x is less than a or x is greater than a. Example 1. Solve the following inequalities. Pause the video and use the previous steps that we've covered to solve. Let's look at the first one. We have 2 minus 5x is less than 8 minus 6x. Our first step is to always transpose terms. Now we can add 6x onto both sides of the inequality and subtract 2 onto both sides. After combining like terms, we have x is less than 6. And for the next one, we have x minus 5 over 3 plus 1 is less than or equal to 3 halves of x. Well, again, we first remove denominators, resulting in 2 times the difference of x and 5 plus 1 times x is less than or equal to 9x. After removing parentheses using the distributive property, we have 2x minus 10 plus 6 is less than or equal to 9x. Then we transpose terms, combine like terms, and then isolate the variable, and then we get x is greater than or equal to negative 4 over 7. Also, we really have to pay attention to this last step right here again because since we're dividing both sides by a negative number, we have to be sure to change the direction of the sign. Now let's discuss. Compare the steps to solving unary linear equations and unary linear inequalities. Now this is a model conversation between two people. The basis for unary linear equations is the property of equality. The basis for solving inequalities is the properties of inequalities. The steps to solving both of them is removing denominators, parentheses, transposing terms, combining like terms, and then isolating the variable. So these steps to solving the equations and inequalities are generally the same. But among these steps, it's important to pay attention when multiplying the same negative number, remember, or dividing, onto both sides of an inequality. Remember, when this is done, the sign has to be changed. Class summary. Today we learned all about solving inequalities. We learned about the concept of linear inequalities in one variable and solving linear inequalities in one variable, among which we covered the steps, which was to remove denominators, remove parentheses, transpose terms, combine like terms, and then isolate the variable. Today, again, these are the two skills we focused on. Understood and mastered the concept of linear inequalities in one variable. We were also able to skillfully solve linear inequalities in one variable by using the properties of linear inequalities. Thank you so much for watching through Inquisitive Kids, and we'll see you next time.